recently, my wife and I, we flew in a private jet, which was pretty freaking cool because it's the first time I've ever experienced it, and I want to share that journey with you. Not to be flexed about flying a private jet, you know, that whole Insta story where you get the flash pictures and videos. Yeah, unfortunately, that did happen. We had a videographer there who's taking all the pictures, and it really makes it look cool. And hey, maybe I'll throw some of the pictures up here and some of the video clips for this video as well, because hey, let's face it, for those that are watching my YouTube channel here, you love this kind of stuff. I can assure you that's the case. Why? Because I love watching this stuff as well. That's my first time flying private. For the last, almost 10 years, I've been flying first class or business class. And trust me, this is from someone who had no money growing up, right? So for me, like, I was the economy person who, when I was flying, I'd always be, buying economy seats. I had no possibility of even being able to fly business or first class. And I remember the first time I was able to fly business, which was a simple flight from Glasgow down to London, and it's not like it's a fancy business class seat, it's just at the front of the plane, a little bit of an extra space, and hey, you get a few extra free drinks and some food and everything else, and it was a cool experience. I remember my first ever business class flight, and that was it. And it was cool. It was just cool being able to be at the front of the plane, and it was just an awesome experience. And then I remember flying in my first class flight long haul, which was to Costa Rica, where my wife is from. And then again, that's where you've got the flatbed out, you can chill, relax, you can get all the drinks, and the food's great. Anyone who says that food on an aeroplane is bad, yeah, it's because you've never flew first or business, right? Because the food there is tremendous. It's great. Trust me on that. And the difference is when you're flying first class or business class, because some business class seats are just as good as first class, is that, in fact, Emirates first class, oh my God, to Dubai, you've got your own booth, literally your own room on an airplane. You've got a bar you can go and take part in, have drinks and socialise. It's like a kind of surreal experience. So for me, when we had the opportunity to fly private, I'm like, well, it's significantly more expensive. And it's only the flight that we had, it's only a flight to the Bahamas from Florida to the Bahamas, and then we're flying back. And it was a small jet, it was a Cessna Citation 2, right? That was a small kind of jet. And for us spending a lot more money, I'm trying to justify it. I'm trying to go, well, why would we spend all that money to fly in a private jet when flying business or first class is a lot cheaper, albeit a lot more expensive than economy or economy plus or whatever kind of other premium seats there is. But the difference was the whole experience, which I'm about to explain, and it's got me thinking, and now I'm looking at potentially about, like, what kind of private jets can you get and how can you hire it and charter a jet and all this kind of stuff, right? And it kind of doesn't make sense, but when I explain this, it's going to make more sense. So when you're going to go and fly, whether you're flying economy, business or first, right, you're going to have to travel to the airport. So when you get to the airport, you have to go in, check in, put your luggage in, and then you're going to have to go through the customs and all that stuff through the, what do you call it? It's right out of my head. We have to go in, put your, it's customs, isn't it? The conveyor belt, yes. So I'm getting nods here from Robin. Yep. So you go in, you having to go through all of that, and then you're having to, and you've got to be there super early, aren't you? If it's international flights, you need to be there for at least 3 hours. So when you go through customs and you go in, and you're then in the lounge, maybe go to the VIP lounge, you're in there messing about a little bit, then you're waiting for your flight to get called, and you go out, you're sitting in a queue, then when you go into the flight, you're sitting in there waiting to take off. Like, it could be a 3 to 4 hours like in the airport before you even take off. And then you've got delays and everything else that's going on and waiting for other passengers. And then when you land, you go out, you have to go through customs again, and then through all of that process, you've got, again, another few hours. So you've got, if you think about it, if it's an hour flight from Glasgow to London, an example, and you're flying business, it's 3 hours before that, or at least 2 hours before that, and 2 hours after the time you get there and everything else. So it takes up a lot of time. Here's my experience when I was flying with private. We showed up, literally drove into the private airport, drove right through, had one security guard there, everything's pre-authorized before, everything was done prior to that. So everything's done before you even arrive to the runway. He then authorizes you to go through, the barrier goes up, you literally drive right up next to the plane. You jump out, someone grabs your luggage and starts putting it in. and someone else is already signing paperwork and everything else. You might turn around about, well, what about checking your luggage and all that kind of stuff as well? Well, that gets checked and make sure that everything's fine when you arrive at the next destination. So when we arrived at the airport to fly to the Bahamas, we literally arrived there. Now, I was there with a group of people and we had a photographer who was taking some cool pictures, some video and all that kind of stuff as well. So we were there for about 40 minutes before the flight took off. But technically, you can arrive there 5 minutes before it takes off. You can walk onto the plane and the plane does not have some predetermined, it has a guide in terms of when it's going to take off. It's not as fixed as it would be commercial. Literally it can then just go and it takes off and that's it. And then when you get there and by the way, here's the best part as well, you can have your own drinks, you can have your own food, you can have anything you want on that plane. It's up to you. You're not having to go with whatever that airline is offering. And then the best part is when we land, literally as you land, then they're already doing all your customs and everything's already getting checked and it happens fast. Like in the Bahamas, there's a video here which I'm going to throw up where I'm recording through the window and you can see customs sitting there stamping our passports and looking at things on the wing of the airplane. And that was it. And because we're in the Bahamas, we got a police escort because Bahamas is a few little challenges and all that stuff there. And it's just a process that they do, looking after their delegates and stuff that are flying in private, which is pretty cool. So we then got this police escort to the resort that we're going. And it was just such a crazy experience because for flying there, forget the hour-long flight or hour and 15-minute flight. Technically, we could arrive 5 minutes before the airport and 5 minutes to get out the plane and gone. Like, how efficient is that? That's crazy. It just makes you start to rethink things in terms of the whole process and everything else. Now, we did have a little bit of a challenge coming home, right? So let me explain this, which is quite funny. So I'm there with a group of people. Everyone's American, apart from Alexa and I. Alexa's Costa Rican, because she's got our UK British passport as well. And flying back from the Bahamas, right before we were just about to take off, the pilot was told that it had to take a detour to Fort Lauderdale to go through customs before we can then check back in. And they never told us why. And then when we got to Fort Lauderdale and we had to go in there, it then came out, we're travelling on ESTAs, but you need to have a A1 or B2 or B1, B2 visa, which we never had. We had ESTAs, which you would do if you're a UK citizen. But for some reason, they wouldn't accept that. So they wouldn't allow us to land at the private airport without passing customs. So we had to take a little detour to Fort Lauderdale to do that. Now, what we learned through that process is there's something that we could have done previous to that would have not made that process happen. However, no one knew that. No one thought it was going to be an issue until we were taken off from the Bahamas to come back into Florida. So one little inconvenience, which was kind of funny a little bit in a sense, but we had an extra trip to Fort Lauderdale, then another flight all the way up, which was like a 20-minute flight from Fort Lauderdale over to Lakewood, which was the private airport, which we then literally landed, got off, car waiting for us to jump in and head off to our hotel. So it's kind of a surreal experience. It cost quite a lot of money just to fly there, like $12,000 for Alexa and I just to fly to Bahamas and back for one flight, flying private in a small private jet, which you would not do long haul. And that got me starting to think about looking at the other planes inside there, the Gulfstreams and the Falcons, and I'm like, oh my God, some of these planes are outrageous. And you start to look at the prices, and I looked at it. For me to fly where we fly all the time, so we'll fly to Costa Rica, a return leg from us to fly from Glasgow to Costa Rica would be 180,000. 180 grand to fly private, and that's in a Gulfstream because you're not going to fly in a Citation 2. It's too small for that long haul. Gulfstream's got far much more space and everything else, and I can't comprehend that. It does not make sense, especially for me and the whole family. To fly first class is anywhere between 20 and 25k. That's the return flight. So for me I need to start weighing up. And one thing that started to come into play for me is clearly I need to go to a new level of my wealth thermostat in order for me to feel comfortable with paying that kind of money to fly private at least 2 or 3 times a year. Now, I'm not there yet. I need to work on my mindset to be able to then get to a place, because I'm still in a mindset of, yeah, I'll fly first class. It's still just as good, but is it? And the reality, I've got more money to build, to invest, do all that kind of stuff as well. But then it's the one thing I always talk about, going back to when I used to fly economy to the first time I flew business, the first time I flew long haul business in first class, is it's the experience. Once you experience those things, once you go through it, once you actually enjoy it, you get a taste of a different lifestyle and how it is. That's where that seed then gets planted, starts to fester away, that for me, I'm like, it's only a matter of time. What do I need to do? What's the next evolution of me to get myself in a situation where we can start chartering jets to the point where we end up buying a freaking jet, right? I've been looking into it, I've been searching, I've been hooked, I'm sitting there, I've been obsessed with, oh my God, you can get a Gulfstream second hand for about 22 million. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the running cost for that? And then would I need to get a pilot to doing that? And then where do we need to keep it? And what's the fuel cost and everything else? It's a bit nuts. And you start looking, and then you go, well, if I got that, where do I need to travel? How do I need to make it worthwhile? Do I need to travel and speak all over the world? Like, it's just crazy how the mind starts to go when you start looking into this stuff. And whether it happens anytime sooner or another 10 years, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It'll happen if you give that more obsession, feed the beast as such, keep on thinking about it, and it goes back to just go and experience business for the first time or first class flight, and you might have to go back to flying economy just because that's the point and that's what you have to do in the situation you're in just now. But you always remember the experience of flying business at first until it becomes your new norm and you're always going to be flying till it becomes your standard. It becomes your standard. Think about it. Alexa and I, we're not traveling long haul if it's not business or first. And we can't just turn around and say to our kids that are 2, 5 and 6, yeah, you guys just sit up there. It's not possible. They're too young. So we have to pay for everyone, right? It's just a new standard and that's what we do. And it's only became that standard because of our lifestyle and because of how things are built up. It's because of how hard we've worked to get there. The next evolution for us is, hey, private jet maybe. So I thought I would share that because it's quite exciting. It's something that a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners aspire and want to do. And hey, I'm still on my journey to want to go and invest and be involved in all this kind of stuff as well. So it's exciting, and it really is. So as always, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Because I like to drop more content. If you like more of this stuff, then please hit the like button, let me know. And then as always, drop any comments you've got in the question box and I will respond to those. So all the best and bye for now.